There you go, nice. How you doing? I'm Shotti NYC. I'm a photographer and the owner of LR2 Photo Studio in the Bronx. Right now we're sitting in LR2 Studio, which coincidentally is the second version of my first studio, LR Studio, which was in my apartment. I shot there for about 8 years, and I created a lot of really dope work in that space. Little do most people know that LR actually stands for living room, because that's where the studio was. And it kind of started out as a joke. I would tell people, you know, when they come into the studio, like, all right, we coming to LR Studios. And then I kind of just carried that into the second version of this place, which really it's really appropriate for me, because I wanted to always have the vibe of like comfortability, where people could come, exchange ideas, feel really comfortable, and you know, that's a really good setting for you to create your art. So I wanted to continue that vibe and have like a very living room type vibe here. So tip number one, where you choose to put this studio is just, if not more important than what you put in it. So you want to make sure that you have a space that has some type of natural light, a large window. And if you don't have a large window, which, you know, sometimes we get what we get and we don't get upset, you can get a light that has a large modifier on it to kind of mimic the light that you would get from the window. But that's like the staple lighting that you should have, and something you should consider when you're thinking about having a studio space. Second tip, inventory. I think it's best to acquire things as you need them, because then you'll find out what the actual use, how you're gonna use the things that you're getting, versus just having a bunch of stuff in your studio taking up space. So as you shoot, as you practice, as you do those things, it'll become more clear to you the exact type of equipment that you need. Every studio, every shoot, every photographer has different needs. So the more you go through those things, you'll find exactly what you need, and you won't waste money on stuff that you don't need. It's really good to anticipate some of the usage, when you're gonna need to replenish stuff, when backgrounds are gonna go dry, because you can't wait till the last minute. So you kind of have to stay on top of the inventory in your space, making sure that you have everything when it's gonna be needed, and not thinking about it at the point that it's needed, because then it's already too late. So understanding how much seamless paper you use in a week or a month, how many AA batteries you go through in a week, how many sandbags are on their way to complete disintegration, and when you need to get more. Stuff like that. It's good to pay attention to. So you want to make sure that everything in the studio has its own specific place to go. Having a visual cue of where everything belongs helps me quickly look and make sure that everything is available for whoever's renting the space. And being able to see things and find them allows me to make sure that they're working properly as well. So for me specifically with my space, I rent it out, and sometimes people can't find things. Being that there's a dedicated place for everything, if somebody calls me and says, hey, I'm looking for the softbox, I know exactly where it is to tell them. And if it's not there, then that means Sean took it home. Sean's my studio manager, studio assistant, and he sometimes takes home stuff to do his own shoots, which I totally encourage. He's like. You also want to make sure that you're intentionally thinking about the spaces that are going to be in your studio. So you want to make sure that you have a space for someone to do makeup. You want to make sure that you have a space for somebody to change, like a little wardrobe area. A lounge area is cool too if you're shooting and maybe somebody brings a friend and they need a place to hang out so they're not in your way. Consider having all of these things. And generally, I like to have everything in the studio, like I have a modular studio. So I like to have everything on wheels, everything is movable. One day we may want to shoot on one end, the next day we may want to shoot on another end, and that option is totally yours. So I go into it thinking, how can I pick equipment and furniture that's easy to move? Earlier I talked about gear and acquiring it as you need it. And I also think it's important to point out that it's more efficient to spend a little bit more money and save in the long run than it is to buy a bunch of cheap or inexpensive items that you're gonna have to constantly replace over and over and over. Where I would not skimp is stands for your lights and actual lights. So we use Profoto in the studio, but Profoto lights are fairly expensive. They are built to last, but they're fairly expensive. I would suggest that you get some type of light that has a little bit of durability, but it's more on the inexpensive side, something like Godox. Those are really good. They're not a waste of money because they'll give you what you need and they'll last until you can save up for some Profoto stuff or some Broncolor or Elechrome or something like that. I think it's important to have good support and a solid team no matter what endeavor you're on. But in the studio specifically, it's really good to have help when I'm not available, to have people that can come and support me and do the things that are required to run the studio. Another thing is wrapping your head around the fact that you are always gonna have to spend money. A lot of people have the misconception that when you have a studio space, or even when you become a photographer, you buy a bunch of camera gear in the beginning and then that's it. But I'm here to tell you that's false. I spend about $600 a year on tape, gaff tape, maybe like $100 a month on batteries. So it's those little expenses that kind of add up. So just, understand that there's no final amount of money that you're gonna pay and then be able to run your business sustainably for the rest of your life. So be prepared to, invest in the business and, hopefully that brings some business back to you. Generally, this studio started pretty much as a workspace for myself. When I got into space, I was doing workshops and I had people in and out of the space, and I figured I want to make something for the community in the Bronx because a lot of us have to travel to Brooklyn or to Queens or Long Island City to shoot. So I wanted to have something in the Bronx. It was very important for me to have something in the Bronx of high quality. So that's how I began the rental side of it. Well, I definitely enjoyed my time with you guys. I hope you did as well. You guys learned how to sculpt faces with light and shadows. You guys learned how to contrast skin tones with different colors. You guys learned how to find different things in the studio that you already use and make them props. You guys learned how to shoot jewelry on models. Woo, that's a lot. I'm tired. Make sure to follow me at Shotti NYC on Instagram and everywhere else, and LR2 Studio. Thanks so much for viewing these videos and kind of chilling with me during this time. Please let me know if there's anything else you want to know. Leave those messages in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave them in the comments, and I hope to see you soon.